My name is Lloyd Messer. I'm an engineer for the town of Waynesville. I've been an engineer for the town of Waynesville for 4 years, going on 5. I am also a paramedic for Haywood EMS. An engineer for the town of Waynesville means that we are subject matter experts on our vehicles. We are the go-to guys for when someone needs something off our truck. And as a paramedic, we deal with people on the worst day of their lives. We are there to fix their worst problem that day at that time. So medicine was my first love. I went to college and became a paramedic through Southwestern Community College. I was encouraged by family members like, hey, if you're wanting to go into emergency medicine, maybe you should look at volunteering at your local fire department. And just immediately fell in love with it. I love the atmosphere. I love everything about it. A lot of people said, well, you got to love one or the other, and I'm the oddball. I have a passion for both. I love being a paramedic, and I love being a firefighter. I love being an engineer, and I wouldn't change it. We're all about helping other people in their worst time of need. Yeah, the adrenaline's fun, the adrenaline's there, but in the end, it's like I did something good today, and we were able to make a difference in that person's life. And you see that a lot in the first responder community. Being a first responder has affected every part of my life. My relationships suffered because it was, oh, we've got a medical call, I've got to go. And my girlfriend at the time would say, well, it's date night, got to go, I'll be back. I became a single man many times because of that. That affected me mentally because I was like, well, I'm just not good enough. I can't find that right person. No one can relate to me. And then I end up meeting my current wife at an actual fire class. It took getting married into that world for someone that truly understands. Supper might be on the table, it might be warm, but it's time to go. The mental side of it is, honey, not tonight. I'm not having a good night. Or today's not a good day, or this shift was one of those shifts. It's a miracle that I'm still married. She many times says, it's time to go take a drive. Basically, it was her kind word just saying, you need to get the heck out of my house and give me a break. At this point, I had a young child, my first. Now I'm responsible for something of my own and someone I've got to take care of. And every time she didn't do something that I didn't want her to do, it was, why are you doing this? You've got to stop. Come on, give me a break, knowing that she doesn't know any better. And that took a toll on my mental health pretty hard. So as a result of that, I started working more. I was like, well, if I'm not home, then I can just de-stress at work and work more. And then when I'm not stressed, I can be at home. That was my mentality of how things worked, because that's how everybody else was doing it. That's how everybody else dealt with it. Later, all that pent up uncertainty. I don't know what I'm going to do with my life. I don't know how to deal with this. My mind is driving me just crazy. And that came to fruition several years later. I was working the fire department and responded to a cardiac arrest. Early in the morning, nothing really unusual, between 7 and 9 o'clock to get called out for a cardiac arrest. So that's what we were told, and honestly, that's what we thought we were going to. I go burst through the door, round a corner, down a hallway, and into a living room, and I find my coworker hanging from a door. I hid the scene from my coworkers at the fire department and literally physically pushed everybody out of the house. I knew right off the bat there was nothing we could do, that he had already passed, it was obvious, and that at this point in time it was to protect others. That was my culminating event. The snowflake that started the avalanche. There was no snowball, there was no nothing. It was a full-on avalanche. Went outside, broke down crying, First time I've ever cried on a scene in over 16, 17 years of doing this. I just felt a overwhelming sense of numb. Like I didn't care anymore. I was done. Went back to the station. You good? You good? Yeah, I'm good. Later on, somebody got the sense about them. It's like, we need to do something about this. And so we done a diffusing. I was like, whatever, I'll go because I have to go, because I was told I have to go. Gave my story like I thought I was supposed to, told my part of it. There was an RSS clinician that was there, and I didn't have a clue that's who that was. I thought it was just some strength that is associated with this WNC peer support. I thought that was just who they were, and I thought that was just part of the gig. 2 to 3 days later, I'm working my next shift. I'm back on shift, and so I come up to the main, and then next thing I know, everybody in the room is gone, and there's this gentleman there. He said, "My name's Dennis Ball. I'm with the Asheville Fire Department," and he says, "I hear you've been having a hard time." I said, "No, sir." He said, "I'm good." The man could spot that something, and knew that something was just not right. And he said, "Son, we need to talk." No, I'm fine. I'm good. Life is good. And he's like, "Fine." He's like, "Well, we're still talking." So we talked about everything in the sun. And then for some reason, I just felt extremely comfortable with this guy. But right then, there was just a sense of calming that this guy's okay to talk to. And so I opened up to him about the call, about what happened. And he said, "I've got a good friend of mine that I think you need to go talk to." And I was like, "I thought that's what we're doing." He said, "That's what we're doing." But he says, "This person's extra special. And her name is Joellen. She's a clinician at Responder Support Services." And I said, "I ain't seeing no shrink. She's not a shrink. She's a clinician." I was like, "Okay, well, I will get up with her." "Okay, here's her card." Week went by. I was like, "I'm good." I'd processed it. I've dealt with it. I folded that little sheet of paper up and put it in the filing cabinet. I was good to go. Little did I know that the outward signs of PTSD were going rampant. I couldn't sleep, having flashbacks after flashback. Calls that I'd ran years ago that I'd completely forgot about were coming up as nightmares in my sleep. Smells would just trigger something and I'd have a flashback. And I was like, what is going on? I started using melatonin, try to sleep. That wasn't working. Do what everybody else does. So I turned to drinking. So I would drink some alcohol till I felt that I was tired. I'd go to bed. Well, it got to the point where the nightmares, night terrors, were just becoming unbearable. To the point I didn't want to go to sleep. I would stay up 2, 3, 4 nights to avoid going to sleep. And then I would nap during the day at work or at home. And I would just work. Finally, my wife and another friend and coworker said, "We made you an appointment. It's with Responder Support Services. We think you need to kind of have to go." I said, "Fine, I'll go." Boy, was I hot. And I got here. I was like, I'm not going in. I told her I'd come. I didn't tell her I had to go in. And then there was a police car that was here. And I saw this guy get out and he walked in. I was like, I'm still not going in. Here comes this guy coming out, and like he just had this overall sense of peace, appealed look to him. I'm like, That's not bad. Fine, I'll give it a shot. They're talking and I'm like, just sitting here, just bouncing up and down. I'm like, okay, we can get started anytime now. Here comes Joellen. And she says, are you such and such? Are you Lloyd? I'm like, yes, ma'am. She says, come on back. She's like, so why are you here today? I was like, because I was told to be here. I thought she was this sweet little lady that I can buffalo and sign the paper and I'm good to go. Oh boy, was I wrong. It was not overnight. After the first session, I realized that this ain't such a bad thing. But still, I didn't want to be here. Like, this is stupid. This is going against everything I was ever told. I was coming to Responder Support Services twice a week with daily check-ins. And at the time, I was like, man, this is stupid. But as time went, I needed those check-ins. So it was probably, it wasn't like a week, it wasn't 2 weeks. This was a month in that I needed these check-ins, I needed these appointments. To the point, like if I was at work, I'd tell my supervisor that morning, like, hey, Joellen, I've got an appointment with Joellen today. And they were so awesome at my job. And they're like, all right, we'll see you here in a few hours. They literally saved my life by allowing me to come over here. Then life got real. Started seeing Joellen, started talking through, we started going through the incidences, and I thought we were making progress, and we were. And me and my wife got into an argument, probably the worst one that we've ever got into, ever. That day is such a blur of what happened. But she's like, I think you're cheating on me. She's like, you're talking to these other girls. You're engrossed in these social media apps. You're very confrontational when I ask you who it is, who you're talking to. She said, so I think you're cheating on me. And that started the inferno. I was like, I'm not talking to you right now. I'm gonna go out in my truck, chill out. When I sat out in my truck, the more I just got, I don't care. I'm done. I texted Joellen, and I can laugh about this now, but it was literally, I typed up a message that says, it's not you, it's me type of letter. Like I'm breaking up with like my girlfriend or something, or my wife. And I said, I'm sorry that I've wasted your time, but you won't have to deal with me anymore. And then I turned my phone off because I was like, I know when she gets this, sure as heck, she's gonna be calling and I don't want to deal with it or have to explain. So then I go to the back and I unhook my truck from my trailer. And Sarah comes out, my wife, and says, Joellen's on the phone. She wants to talk to you. And then she comes out, hands the phone, says, Joellen wants to talk to you. I get her phone, push end, hand it back, and I said, go away, leave me alone. So there was already a fire on my vehicle against Joellen's wishes because she knew the situation. And so I just take off. I stop by a gas station. I get a case of beer and my phone is turned off. I don't tell my wife where I'm going. I don't tell Joellen where I'm going. I didn't even know where I was going. I pick up a case of beer. I throw in my favorite CD in the truck radio, and I go to one of my favorite spots. That's just where I go to when I needed to calm down, but this time was different because this is the spot where I was going to end my life. It's like, well, I'm going to listen to my CD when it's done and I get down to this last beer, then I'm done. I was on my last beer, and there was 30 seconds left on the CD. And all of a sudden, I see a white truck pull up next to me on my right. And I look over, and granted, I'm in the most random place in the county that no one knows where I'm at. And I look over, and there is at the time, my boss from Haywood EMS. And he just got this grin, and he just waves. And I was like, really? Of all the times for you to show up, you show up now. I rolled down the window, and I was like, he's like, hey, how's it going? I'm like, oh, I'm fine. What are you doing here? Just acting like nothing had happened. Wasn't 5 minutes later, there's another vehicle pulls behind my truck. Another vehicle pulls up to the driver's side of my truck. And then I realized that was the Calvary. So if you don't believe in a higher power, after that, I don't know what else to tell you, because I'm like, well, somebody actually cares. I lost it. Not in a bad way. I just started crying. I bawled my eyes out. And my captain was the guy that pulled up behind me. He just opens up the door and just starts hugging me. And I just start bawling, because I was thankful that someone cared enough to actually look for me. Now, what happened after that is totally not what you're supposed to do, but it's what I needed. I went back to my captain's house and was introduced to now one of the best friends, one of my best friends, but at the time I didn't know him, Adam from Eve. He said, let me share you my story. And this guy's talking about, I thought that he knew my story, because he just repeated everything that I have had going on or been going on. And I said, who told you that? Who told you my story? He said, nobody. I stayed at my captain's house until about 3 o'clock in the morning, until I was good to go home. And I went home, and my wife was still waiting up on me at 3 o'clock in the morning. And she just comes and she hugs me. She says, I want you to know I love you. That was the first time in probably 10 years that I actually felt love. True love from my wife. And I just held her tight. I went to work on an ambulance after just having a psychiatric break. I get a phone call promptly at 7:30, 8 o'clock, about an hour or so into my shift, and it's Joelle. She says, how you doing? And I was honest. And she said, so how you really doing? And I said, that's how I'm really doing, Joelle. She says, you need to go, and we need to make some decisions about. I was like, I'm good. She says, no, we're not good. And I realized then what she was talking about. Because obviously I was still not good, because I had every intention less than 12 hours before of killing myself. And so I went to my boss's office, and he was there. He looked about like how I felt. And I put Joellen on speakerphone. I was like, Joellen, I put you on speakerphone. And she says, I want you to know that we offer, I call it the backdoor program. But she says, I think you need to go. I was like, well, I'm not going to this hospital because I live in this county. She's like, no. Let me explain. She's like, I'll take you anywhere you want to go, but you got to go. And my boss said, I will take him anywhere he needs to go. Less than an hour and a half later, I was on my way to a hospital 2 to 3 counties over. And then I was admitted to a psychiatric floor voluntarily for 72 hours. I was there for 3 days and was able to come home. I was heavily medicated, but I'm glad I was, because it opened my mind up to being able to process what I had just tried to do. The impact that RSS has on my life is that it is my life. It saved my life, literally. It introduced me to some of the best friends I've ever had in my life now. I owe RSS everything. My life, my family, my job. I've been able to actually process things now, where before I wasn't allowing myself to. I actually had somebody to turn to now. And that's been the biggest relief that I can ever think of. The clinicians and therapists here have such a deep understanding and appreciation for the first responders. I've heard stories where other therapists started crying because you were sharing stories of what you saw and how you felt, and they're like, I can't handle you. I don't know what to do. I've literally heard other first responders say that their therapist said, I can't handle you. We're done. But RSS and the therapists and the clinicians here, that's just another day. They get first responders. They understand how their mind works, and that when you send a text message, it's like, hey, how's it going today? That's not just a, hey, how's it going today? It's, hey, I need to talk. They understand the code that first responders have, and they're able to decipher that. Opens up a world that we didn't know existed. That we've actually got people to talk to that care, and that not only care, but care about us. And we care about each other. And it's no longer us suffering as a result of putting others first.